Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us on today's Condor Zoom chat at Ventana Wildlife Society. Thank you also for putting in the chat where you're joining us from. I saw some of you from Texas, New York, Washington, Virginia, and of course, a lot of you from California. So welcome and thanks for sharing that. I just wanted to share a couple of good news and shout outs to a couple of donors. Many of you know that we've been rebuilding the Condor Sanctuary in Big Sur since the Dolan fire burned through in 2020, and we made great progress. We gave an update on that recently. We discovered with the rising costs of materials, we had a gap of $200,000, and the Hein Foundation just contributed $100,000 of that. So we're almost there. We just have a little bit remaining. And we're just super excited. I want to give a huge thanks to the Hein Foundation. And we're going to be able to finish the rebuild. I just know it. We just have a little bit more to go. And March or April, weather depending, we'll get back to rebuilding. So thanks again to Hein Foundation. Also, I want to give a huge thanks to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, a longtime partner, and also a contributor, financial contributor in a number of different ways. And most recently, we were awarded a grant from their State of the Birds Fund. And it's a competitive internal Fish and Wildlife Service grant that supports bird conservation. And we were lucky enough to be selected for a non-lead outreach focus. And that's where we are getting the funding necessary to hire a new outreach position, which we are now recruiting for. So please spread the word and check out the announcement on our website. So that's all I have for today. And I'll turn it over to the Condor Crew. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Well, it's good to be back. Excited to give everyone another update on what's happened the last month. I am joined by the crew today, our super dedicated crew. We don't have everyone here, but we have Kara and wave there on our panelists right here. We have Danae.
Hi, guys.
And we have Danae.
Hi, everyone.
And then from San Simeon, we have Katie and Camden. They just did the wave. But we're excited. We've had a really pretty wild month in terms of weather. For folks in California, they know what's been going on, but for folks outside of the state, you probably heard I think it made national news of some of the storm activity we've been contending with here, and it definitely packed a punch, and you're never quite ready for it when it's that monumental of a storms and they stacked up on each other. And at that point, you just hope the damage isn't too bad. So Kelly kind of touched on it, but obviously our rebuild kind of came to a halt when we have the big weather like this move in. It pretty much at this stage, we're just looking at ways to get up to our sanctuary, whether it's in Big Sur, up down in San Simeon. Usually when storms this big hit, we lose access to our roads pretty quickly, either in the form of a mudslide or a tree coming down. So we can't wait we're really close to just really pretty much have finished the release pen, but just have a few final touches. So we're anxious to get up there and finish those once it dries out a little bit. But again, when this weather's this bad, we wouldn't be using the pen for much right now. Obviously, we're just trying to keep the roads clear and keep an eye on the birds at this stage. And obviously the birds, they get through these storms unscathed. It's it's usually us and our roads that have the biggest problems. But yeah, the birds tend to contend with the weather pretty darn well. And yeah, we got a lot to update you on today. And this is just a quick review of the rebuild update where we left off. The release pen, again, major storms delayed completion, but we're at the final stages. We're hoping to have this thing wrapped up in February. And the cabin, as Kelly touched on, we halted construction until late spring just because the next phase of construction is actually building the cabin on top of the foundation. So we want to not have any materials damage and just wait till the sky's clear to get that going. So we estimate that to be done, start construction up in spring. We'll hopefully be done by the end of summer or even early summer if things go well. So the winter storms and flooding, you never know what Big Sur, what these big storms are going to bring. And of course, Big Sur just gets hammered. The photo on the right, the photo on the left is kind of like the quiet before the storm. It's always a little eerie when you're up on the ridge. And this was a photo I took right before we got the huge series after series of storms. And it was kind of foreboding a little bit. It was dark but at the same time, kind of beautiful. But yeah, that was right before the storms hit. And then on the right is right in the middle of the storms. This is Andrew Malera State Park, for those that are familiar with where our Discovery Center is. And I put a red arrow on the photo there to show that our sign is almost underwater. And that's the entrance to the left of where we drive in to go to the Discovery Center. So you can see the scale. The Big Sur River definitely rose really high, and it definitely impacted our Discovery Center. But first off, this is some of the photos from our first step was to kind of assess what was going up at base camp in the sanctuary and to find out what was going on up there. And of course, it was what we thought. A lot of creeks were flowing that we don't normally see flow. They're full, so much water. This creek on the left, the photo is the seasonal creek that comes alive in the winter, only on the really big winters when we get a lot of rain, which is a great sign. We love to have the rain. It's obviously resupplying the aquifers and, obviously getting us out of the drought mode we've been in. But again, you have to contend with it. We want to make sure the water flows across the road and doesn't take the road with it. So a lot of the work I've been doing is making sure the water goes where it's supposed to. And then of course, on the right, the crew and I, we've been just clearing lots of big trees. These are a lot of trees that have died, that were burned in the Dolan fire a couple of years ago that are now starting to fall. So we tend to clear out when the big storms hit, let nature do its thing, and we come in after when it's nice and calm and clean up. But it is a lot of work. But again, we were able to get the road cleared this month. Just actually yesterday, we finally got the road cleared back to base camp. So we put some carcasses out last night for the birds. Big shout out to Darren who was up there late last night putting out carcasses. And yeah, so things have been going along. And yeah, Kara, jump in here. Boy, we had a lot to work with on the Discovery Center. Big shout out to the state parks. They came in and sandbagged the facility. Really awesome. It really saved us. It saved the facility. The water. This is a photo on the left is before the storm with the sandbags and the plastic. And then on the right is after the storm and the flood. And you can see how much mud was brought in. And again, the sandbags really saved us. We did get water inside, about a foot of water inside the Discovery Center, but fortunately it was just water damage, and it settled out and it dried out. We had a little bit of mud, and it could have been a lot worse. So yeah, we're kind of looking at the glass half full. It could have been taking the whole structure, which thankfully it didn't. So yeah, just a lot of cleanup to do. Here's Kara on the left. We're
I was gonna say I can jump in if you want.
Yeah, jump in. Yeah, maybe talk about what you guys are doing here, and Danae's in there too.
Yeah, Danae, you can see Danae kind of in the back there. So, I mean, like Joe said, kind of we got a foot of water, a little over a foot of water. So everything that was kind of under that line was just soaking wet. So we kind of took everything out and just kind of went through what was salvageable and what we had to throw away. I think, and then Ulissa, part of our education department, was sweeping away all of the silt from the ground. So the whole ground was covered in silt. So we were just kind of like brushing that all up to try to clean that up, and had fans going and everything just to dry up everything. But it was weird going in there because all the state parks in Big Sur are closed right now, but we had to get in there to kind of assess the damage and see what was going on. So it was kind of weird driving around the park closed sign to go see what we were in for. But I think the next picture is kind of, or the next slide. Yeah, this was a good one. So we store a lot of our kennels that we use for transporting birds at Andrew Malera. And this was kind of, you can see the level of water. So those kennels were on the floor. So Danae and I are just scooping the water out of the kennels because they were too heavy to drag. So we were just kind of scooping and throwing them out these windows here in order for us to drag them out.
Yeah, I remember when we first went in, it was pretty surreal because stuff had been floating So
Yeah.
stuff that was normally in one spot had moved and literally floated around inside the Discovery Center. So it was a really odd, bizarre scene when you walked in. And but yeah, the Discovery Center, and then we also have some storage buildings we use to store essential Condor equipment. It's also the location of our walk-in freezer, which was where we keep our Condor food supplies. So this is integral to everything we do for the Condor project. So we were obviously, the concern was very high. Fortunately, the freezer was untouched, and none of our
Yeah,
tools
I think
were
that's like
lost.
what we were most worried about, because cleaning up a little dirt is way better than cleaning up a bunch of unfrozen cows.
Yeah, exactly.
Not great.
Yeah, and again, the state parks, California state parks really came through for us. Can't say enough. And yeah, we got a little cleanup to do, but we're getting there, and we'll get in there. We'll have it cleaned up probably in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I feel like we dodged a bullet for sure. So the population, it's doing, we obviously right at the end of the new year, we were at 94 condors. Unfortunately, we did lose a bird right at the beginning of the year. We've been posting about it on social media. Condor 968 Wasak was taken in. He was showing signs over at Pinnacles that he was lead poisoned, and we brought him in. And unfortunately, he died in captivity. We have a next slide explaining more. But yeah, we do have some other exciting developments in terms of our fledglings from last year, how they're doing. So again, not the best start, you want to have, but again, lead poisoning, we continually talk about it. It's our number one obstacle for condors. So just got to keep forging ahead. And again, we had 22, all considering, 2022, all considering was a year of improvement compared to previous years. So again, we hope things slow down here in 2023. But again, as long as we have lead out there, these birds have to contend with it, and we're doing our best to kind of keep them out of harm's way. But again, we can't be everywhere all the time. So our non-lead outreach, the free non-lead ammunition program that Mike's heading up, is making a big impact, but we have to do more, obviously. Yeah, and maybe Danae or Kara jump in here and give Wasak a great shout out. He will be missed.
Yeah, I definitely want to give a big shout out to the Pinnacles crew and the crew down at LA Zoo. Pinnacles is really on top of things in terms of trapping him. As we all know, our Big Sur Sanctuary, we can't trap birds there just quite yet. We're getting close, but Pinnacles has a working trapping facility, so they were really on it in terms of having a crew ready to go. And big shout out to Evan as well on our crew he immediately dropped everything and drove over to Pinnacles so that they could get that bird in a kennel. And then Evan drove that bird straight down to LA Zoo in the same day. So Evan definitely put in some long hours that day and got Wasak, the care that he needed as soon as possible, and gave him really the best chance at recovery. And then the LA Zoo staff, we give them shout outs, it seems like almost every Zoom, but they really are just so good at what they do. They're the best in terms of providing care to condors. There's really, they really did everything that they could for him. And so we're just really grateful. It's hard for them too. We always get sad losing these birds because we see them out in the wild, but it's really hard for the zoo staff as well, because they see these birds when they're already not doing good. And lead poisoning is really tough to recover from. So it is pretty often that we have a bird that dies from it in captivity. So just a big shout out to them for doing everything that they could, and just dealing with all the emotional and physical exhaustion that comes with that. It is obviously very hard to lose a bird, and we're all really sad to see Wasak not be a part of the population anymore. But we know that we did everything that we could in this case, and he at least had some rest and some comfort in his final days for sure.
Yeah, and I just remember getting the heartbreaking text, call from Mike, and he had just had Wasak die in his arms. I mean, I can't, get choked up thinking about it, because they take one for the team for sure. In these photos here, big shout out to Tim Huntington. He always captures the beauty of these birds best, and these are two really awesome photos. So yeah, it's hard to lose these guys. And this guy was just, God, he was just right at the start of his life. These birds should be living 50, 60 years, and this guy was, not even breeding age. So yeah, it's hard. We take them on the chin constantly. It's tough. But again, big shout out to LA Zoo and for all they did. Rookies, who wants to? Well, I think we got Katie and Camden here for our rookie update.
Maybe trying to lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah.
Not to make light of our great 968 passing. All the rookies are still doing great. We were up on the ridge this morning, hanging out with them, watching them. Some of you might have seen on the cam last week specifically. After all the rains, we really wanted to load up the slope. So I think they've been having a really good last week. We put out 8 calves last week. So we've really got to see them really get into it, especially because it drew in some birds that we don't see as often up on the ridge. So it's fun watching them interact with some of these newer birds that they haven't met yet. So our 2 boys, 1087, as you all know, Buckeye, and 1085, Wild Bill, both still doing great, eating lots, having a great time up there.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks are wondering how they fared through the storms. This was, an unusually big storm, and these young guys we always worry about a little bit. Because we were luckily had the cam going. You two were cut off. We had the holidays going, and they had a little challenge. I mean, they definitely because I remember, what was the lot you guys were able to put out carcasses before, right around Christmas.
Yeah, I want to say it was
around like the 15th to the 20th, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So
Been a while.
They went a bit, which is one of the reasons we want to make sure they're super stocked up.
Yeah, and then the roads got cut off. Your access got cut off down there, so we were contending with that. And then these storms just started stacking up. But really, I mean, that just goes to show you how amazing these birds are. I mean, they're just built to us, because that big wingspan, you get grounded in these storms, you can't fly. They have to be resourceful. So they, it's amazing how they can conserve energy. And it's almost, I even think they probably, in a way, metabolism wise, slow themselves down a little bit during those storms, just to kind of conserve everything they can. So pretty amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And as far as we could tell, they all took it like a champ. We did manage to see them a couple times on the cams when we weren't able to physically get up there. So we were able to keep somewhat of an eye on them. But I think that they are probably just as happy as we are with a little break in the weather.
Yeah. So our ladies definitely weathered the storm as well. For all the rookies, it's been like almost a month since we saw them. So I think we were both pretty not worried about them. I knew that they got it, but just eager to see them. So yeah, we saw these 2 yesterday, and they were feeding and hanging out with everybody. And then we saw 1099 today as well. She was actually hanging out with some of the big boys, feeding with them.
Awesome.
So that was nice to see. And then 1100 seems like she might have taken a trip somewhere. We're waiting for her GPS to come in, see where she went. We didn't see her today. So exciting for her. We'll see where she went.
That is exciting. Yeah, they probably got that first clear skies and wanted to stretch those wings.
Yeah, it's cool actually. We saw them flying around the past 2 days, and it's fun to watch the rookies. They're not, as good as the older birds, but it's fun to see them catch the wind and, give their wings a stretch.
Yeah, and you two were giving us updates when you got up to the site. We did get a little water inside the pen, inside the blind, the observation room.
Yeah, we spent some time yesterday cleaning up in there, trying to dry it out. Definitely a little moldy, but hopefully we got most of it.
Yeah, that I know in some of those storms watching the cam, the rain was going sideways. So it's
Oh yeah.
So it finds ways into buildings that you never imagine, when it's that extreme. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, I was not surprised to hear we got a little water in there, and then even a little water in the cabin you guys stay in, right?
Yeah, we think a little bit of water in the cabin as well, but luckily it seems like not too much damage. They're also probably pretty manageable. So just trying, same as you all in Andrew Malera, but way easier level.
Yeah.
Try everything out and make sure that it's no permanent problems stick around.
For sure. All right. Any other stuff to add before we jump on to Iniko here?
I don't think so. Everyone's doing good. I'm super proud of them for making it through. They're obviously tough birds. Yeah.
It is amazing.
They're doing
Yeah.
great.
Nature built them well. I mean, those feathers, how they protect them and that thick down they have underneath. I mean, they really are just designed for the worst of it. They can just ride it out. Yeah, pretty amazing. Yeah, so we have Evan wasn't able to join us, obviously, but he put together this awesome map, and it's kind of a recap of where Iniko has traveled. You know, obviously she got released last year, and that was a momentous occasion to have Iniko, who survived the fire. You know, went to LA Zoo, and then we re-released her at San Simeon, and she's now been out in the wild, really stretching her wings. And we see it with young condors as they get more experience. Their flight, you know, it's what you expect. Their range kind of sequentially expands, you know, as time moves on. And this map really captures that well. I don't know if Danae and Carol want to jump in, but it's yeah, what Evan's put together here, and you know, anytime we have these maps, folks are just listening. It's really just showing it. Evan's put the Central and Southern California range, which basically encompasses most of the Coast Range all the way down into the Southern Sierras, as far up north as Livermore. And then within there, he has the different release sites, and then showing, and then he has a few flight paths showing Iniko's travels. So has a nice ring to it, Iniko's travels. And she has basically covered pretty much the full spectrum outside of going all the way to Southern California. She almost made it. She almost made it down to Santa Barbara. That's probably her most impressive flight, is the one she did from San Simeon almost down into the Santa Barbara, which is a very known historic area for condor nesting. And when the original wild birds were still out in the wild in the 80s, that was one of the last strongholds, was the Santa Barbara Mountains. So it's pretty exciting to see her go down there and kind of skirt that range and come back up. And yeah, and then of course she followed some birds north of Pinnacles. She's been up as far as looks like just east of Gilroy there. So she's doing definitely probably one of the more advanced youngsters we have, I would say, when you guys in terms of flight.
I was gonna say, Iniko is covering some ground, some serious ground. But I think it's interesting too, like she really doesn't hang out in Big Sur. She's over at Pinnacles. You can kind of see this GPS activity graph over here, but she's always at Pinnacles. So I feel like it's a special treat whenever she shows up at base camp or in Big Sur. We like all get super excited that she's actually on the coast.
Yeah, you know, and that's a pattern we've seen with these redwood fledged chicks, is they tend to head over to Pinnacles, and the Pinnacles chicks seem to love coming over here. So maybe it's by design, you know.
Yeah, they want to go see a different territory.
Yeah, the grass is always greener kind of a thing. I don't know, but the pattern is starting to become pretty darn apparent. But it'd be interesting when she reaches breeding age, will she come back to her natal ground, you know, kind of back to the coast? So that'd be fun to, yeah, that's going to be fun to watch, to see where she ends up in the breeding scene.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I just saw a comment pop up real quick. It should be January 22nd, 2023. Yes.
yes.
It has not been a year since we've seen Iniko.
There was a lot going on in this map. So
yeah,
I'm sure
there's a lot of information to cram into one slide.
Yeah. So yeah, I like it there in the top left, showing, you know, he wrote the date that Iniko made it back to Big Sur, which was pretty cool, because, you know, we released her down at San Simeon in late 2021, and everyone was anxious to hear, when is she going to make it back to Big Sur? Is she going to find Redwood Queen? And which she did. She came back, and then she was in this photo actually feeding with Redwood Queen. And that was in May. Definitely took longer than all of
Yeah,
us
that was
thought.
like 6 months from
I
when we
know.
released it, right? Is that how
Yeah,
math works?
so again, yeah, pretty cool. And then yeah, just seen not too long ago over there at Pinnacles. Yeah, I know Tim on his recent missions over to Pinnacles has spotted her. But yeah, it's rare to see her on the coast. We're always excited to see her on the at the Big Sur site. So yeah, when you see it laid out on this graph, and another interesting aspect to this is that she's most often in wild areas. So kind of these off the chart areas. So that's very condor like, you know. And again, that means she's out doing what she's supposed to be doing, you know, being a wild condor. So pretty awesome. So big shout out to Evan for putting together this really cool map of Iniko's travels here. So yeah, we'll keep updating this. You know, I think it's kind of cool to revisit this, you know, every 6 months to a year just to see what she's up to. Because we're learning with everyone too here. So that's pretty cool. All right, nesting update. Who's on it here? I know Danae or Kara, you guys have been deep in this.
Sure.
Well, I was just gonna say, oh, go ahead, Danae. I talked to the last slide.
Yeah, feel free to jump in, Kara, if you have things to add, but I
Yeah.
can kind of just give a general overview. So just kind of recapping from our 2022 nesting season. I know we're going to talk about the upcoming 2023 season, but we did have those 3 successful nests in 2022. We have some pretty exciting news about 1174, the first chick on that list, who's 477 and 190s chick from 2022. But we believe that that chick is doing really well. Obviously, actually all 3 of these chicks are untagged. So none of them, they were all hatched in the wild and wild nests. So none of them have tags on their wings. And so it'll be really interesting when they do start mixing around a little bit more to sleuth out which one is which. But the other 2 chicks hatched over near Pinnacles. One was in the park, one was outside the park. And both of those, I know the chick that hatched in the park has been seen a lot. Flying around in the high peaks and things like that. I believe Tim Huntington just saw that bird yesterday, the day before. So they're both the Pinnacles chicks are also doing really well. And then, yeah, our fledgling out on the coast is also doing great and has just started to integrate with the Big Sur flock up at the feeding site. So I know Joe probably has some good firsthand insights into that bird. But yeah, the untagged juvenile, which we strongly suspect is 1174, was first seen on the live cam on January 17th. And then Joe also saw this bird in person when he was up clearing the road on the 25th. So we want to give a big shout out to Octahedron 1, who is the viewer that uploaded videos to YouTube showing this fledgling hanging out with adult birds and feeding and flapping those untagged wings. So really awesome that you guys watching those explore cams are usually the first to see these things because you're watching them so closely. So we really appreciated you all sharing that with us, and now we can share it with all of you. And yeah, Joe, you want to give any good highlights from when you saw that bird in person?
Yeah, it was a classic day where, you know, we'd just been, you know, busting our humps trying to get that road clear. And I remember just stopped to take a quick break out by, you know, this area where it kind of opens up. And I just remember out of the corner of my eyes, you know, and watching condors over the years, the birds without tags stand out really quick. And just a juvenile in general, a real wild fledge has just a darker appearance. So I noticed off to the, you know, coming from right to left, and immediately just saw that was the untagged. And, you know, for all of us that work with these birds, it's the ultimate reward for if you've had a day like I did. It's like, it was pretty awesome. So yeah, and it's always a treat to see these birds, you know, and again, that's what Ventana's striving for. We're striving for the day that all these birds are tagless, you know, that, you know, that's really the ultimate goal, you know. So every time you see an untagged fly by or see an untagged in the wild, it reminds you of, you know, why we got to keep pushing forward. And it's really the penultimate, it's the most awesome, you know, for us biologists thing to see. It's the ultimate reward. So yeah, we're excited to find out who it is. And we're pretty, you know, I would say, what are we at, 95%? And that'd go up if we see, you know, and that's why we need everyone's help, especially folks watching the Explore cam, you know, our Big Sur Explore.org cam. keep an eye out. What we're looking for is to see if Redwood Queen and Phoenix. So Redwood Queen's going to have the red 90. Phoenix is going to have the white 77 tag, wing tags, to see them feed the chick. That would be the ultimate, outside of a genetic blood test. That's going to be the ultimate behavior that we can hang our hat on. Yep, it's their chick. So it's probably going to be more likely than not, we're going to see that on the cam around a carcass or something like that. So keep your eyes peeled if you see it, kind of like Octahedron 1 did. Post it, let us know. Again, you guys are all citizen scientists out there watching our cam, so you contribute greatly to the cause when you post these different observations. And that was a classic example last week, so that was pretty cool. And on that note, this is a great time to give a shout out to all of our explore.org viewers. You know who you are. We listed you here. There's definitely more. Obviously, Callie Condor's one of our, she's been not only posting that, what she sees, but she's even made her own spreadsheet and gives us other details that we love. And then we have Bent Chick that's on YouTube. She helps moderate that page for explore.org. And can't say enough. She is, over the years, she answers comments on the comment chart that comes in on YouTube. We just mentioned Octahedron and Kelly Loves Cats, and we get a kick out of everybody's handles, their viewer names. So all of these are that, and these folks are always on there watching the birds and just really contributing a lot to what we're doing, and just can't give a shout out and to everyone else watching. So yeah, you got it. Danae, Carrie, you guys want to add anything else?
I was just gonna say I love reading the comments too, because I feel like you guys definitely know these birds as well as we do, and it's fun to like see someone else kind of get a kick out of them and know their weird personalities. And so yeah, it's just fun to like recap and read all the comments and see what you all see on the cameras while we're busy doing other things. Sometimes more boring, like staring at a screen.
Yeah, and what I see happening too with the viewers, they're starting to know the histories of these birds.
Yeah.
They're starting to say, oh, that she did that last year. That kind of, they're getting fully sucked in like we are,
Yeah, these birds have us wrapped around their fingers. So
yeah, they're
we're
getting,
for it.
yeah, exactly. We're all wrapped around their fingers. That's great, Kara. I'm gonna hit the next slide. Oh, here we go. This is what everyone's been waiting for. I'm gonna let you two take this away.
Kara, you want to start?
I can start, sure. All right, so our 2023 preseason lineup. So these are birds that either didn't nest last year or like attempted to nest last year, but their nests failed for one reason or the other. So I think I'm trying to we had a couple of these birds produce chicks like 2 years ago. So they're still going strong. So we have 204 Amigo and 646 Kodama. We strongly suspect that they're going to have a chick or an egg again this season. Another pair is 652 Ferdinand and Pentacles female 550. And then who else do we have? 168 Beak Boy and 208 Solo. So they haven't produced a chick in a couple years, but they've been very, they've produced a lot of chicks in the past. So we know that they have been successful parents with fledgling chicks and know what to do. This one's a little bit of a toss up. So we have
this is serious drama
538
here.
Miracle. What?
This is the most drama of all.
Yeah, this is the dramatic sequel of every single year. I feel like it goes, but 538 Miracle and 742 Nomad, they have chick 1104 from last season or 2 years ago. But I don't know, Miracle has been kind of hanging out with 219 Puff Daddy, like you can see in this picture here. So we're kind of placing bets every day on whether she's going to stick with 574 Nomad or if she's going to switch it up and go for Nomad's dad, actually, Puff Daddy 219. So it's
Darren has got it. Darren's putting it all on 574. He's I don't know, and I'm kind of torn. 219's a lot to contend with. He's a whole lot of bird.
He is a whole lot of bird, a whole lot of bird. But yeah, this is definitely like the most dramatic relationship in the condor world here.
So again, on these cams, you can watch it. You're gonna watch it all unfold.
Watch
So
it live.
when you see interactions between these three, definitely post about it. We love.
I know, I was gonna say in the chats, I just saw someone vote for or like root for 574. Who do you guys think she's gonna go with?
No, it'd be
But
terrible.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can't help but feel for 574. I mean,
Oh, no.
they've raised chicks together. Yeah, God, it's man,
They
it
have.
hits all the hits all the marks here for a soap opera.
It really does. I mean,
It's
I
better than
think
The
the
Bachelor, I think.
father-son thing is really, that's the most dramatic bit of it.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Anyways, we have some more groups. So we have 209 Shadow and 171 Traveler as well. They are a pretty established pair, so we'll see what happens with them. And then 566 Mike's Bird and 711 Big Gulp. So those are our two males at San Simeon. So we're just trying to see if they can win over a lady to lay an egg. But yeah, that's kind of the 2023 lineup. And I think we have some other like not quite established pairs yet. So the bachelors and bachelorettes of the Condor world on the next page or next
Yeah.
slide.
Oh yeah, got it. Let me hit the next slide. Sorry.
And I'll let Danae take this one.
Sure. Yeah.
This is a lot to keep track of, by the way. This is like a
It is.
I know we need to make a little spreadsheet or like a little, I don't even know
well,
what.
we need all the connect the dots and
Yeah, there's always some weird switcheroos that happen too that you just never quite know what's gonna happen until the egg is laid. All bets are off, and sometimes even after that point,
I
because
was gonna say
sometimes we
until the
figure out who the
genetics come
parents
back.
are, and it's not the parents we thought. So yeah, there's always drama.
I wanted to ask real quick for Katie and Camden, do we have any potentials down there for the boys?
Not that we've
No.
seen yet. We've had a lot of
Dang.
male
Dang.
visitors, but no ladies yet. To keep you all excited though, the spot that we thought we saw them nesting, I did see 3 mature condors flying around. So maybe we
Oh.
missed somebody and somebody's there that we haven't seen yet.
That's exciting. That I'll take it.
Ooh, the
That's
plot
They
good.
were too
thickens.
far away to get any IDs or anything. So
That's awesome.
You never really know with them. Yeah, as Joe mentioned, they do tend to be kind of aggressive towards potential females in the past, but who knows? Anything could happen for sure. We don't have a ton of breeding females that haven't nested yet, but 2 of them are up here on our potential new coastal pairs list. So this is just a reminder too, these are all just the pairs that nest out on the coast. There's also pairs that nest farther inland that Pinnacles is really keeping an eye on. So there's the potential for a lot of nests this year, which is very exciting for all of us. But our potential coastal pairs for this year, we have 626, who's a Pinnacles female, has been spending a lot of time with Ninja, 729. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about Ninja. I think he's garnered some more support since the whole Iniko debacle, but he's a really awesome bird. He's pretty dominant in the hierarchy despite being kind of younger compared to a lot of our older males. And last year he did attempt to nest with 828, who is a Pinnacles female as well. So maybe he just has his eye on the Pinnacles females over there, but he and 828, unfortunately, they laid an egg, but unfortunately their nest failed when 828 died of lead poisoning. So he's still back at it this year and still definitely doing his best to win over the ladies. And Pinnacles female 626 has been seen kind of hanging out in his territory, as well as they've been seen together feeding on the slope, and he's been displaying to her and kind of showing signs that they are definitely forming a pair. 626 has been breeding age for a few years now, and she's never nested before to our knowledge. So this is pretty cool that Ninja is the one to finally win her over. And we think maybe he was just, tenacious enough to just put himself out there and woo her when all the other males maybe were just not quite up to par in her mind. So we're excited to see where that goes. We definitely think that they could nest this year, and we have a pretty good idea of where 729's territory is, which is really helpful as well. And then another pair or potential trio we're keeping our eyes on is 881 Minerva. We believe that she could be in a trio with 631 and 745. 745 is the Pinnacles male. And so we think that the three of them could have formed a trio. They were definitely hanging out a bit together last year, but 881 was not breeding age last year. This is the first year that she has reached breeding age. And so it's kind of tricky, you know, we say that they reach breeding age at like 5 or 6 years old. And so she's 5 years and I think 6 months old or something like that. And so she's, you know, she's definitely could breed, but sometimes they wait a few years to breed too. They don't always breed right when they reach breeding age. So at least right now, we definitely have seen her showing some signs that she is interested in these males. They've definitely both been displaying to her and feeding with her and preening her and things like that. So all those indications are really good signs that she probably will try to nest with them, but all bets are off. It's hard to say at this point. We'll really just have to wait until we get closer to the egg laying time period. And you know, she's got a lot of options. So we listed a couple other options here, but 470 Fuego is a really dominant male. That's another really great option for her. He kind of has his own territory since he split off a couple years ago from his trio with 204 and 646. 663 Unipero, who's our wild card one-legged condor. He's just surpassed all of our expectations in terms of survival. And, you know, we really don't know a lot about him just because he has been, you know, not very frequently seen at our feeding sites, but he's definitely still out there on the landscape. And we definitely think he could still have territory and potentially could be a breeder. And then 665 Redwood Sun, we did see him hanging out a lot with 626 last year. And we thought maybe the two of them would try to nest together last year, but nothing ever came of that. And so we think he's another good potential for this year. He's typically does a lot of displaying as well at the feeding sites and likes to put his name in the hat for a potential mate for some of these, the few females that we have that aren't paired already. So these are all really good candidates for 881 if she decides to nest this year. But we'll definitely keep you guys posted as we get more intel on who she's been flirting with and hanging out with, as well as 626 and 729. But it's always exciting with these new pairs to figure out, you know, where they're going to nest, because we, you know, if they're pairs that have never bred before, it's hard to determine where they might try to nest. And then, yeah, just figure out who they're going to partner with. And in cases like trios, that's even more exciting just to see, you know, two males kind of get involved in that breeding process. Our sex ratio skew in the population is about 2 to 1. So we have almost twice as many breeding males than we do females. So it's not uncommon to see these trios. And really, it's, you know, everyone wins in that situation. The chick has an extra parent to help raise it. Both of those males are getting really great breeding experience, so just more experience for those birds all around and more care and protection for that chick. So we love to see the trios. It's always a fun dynamic. And so we're excited to see what will happen this year.
Awesome. Okay, next slide. Here we go. This is this is all you, Kara or Danae?
All right. So we had a little fun this nesting season, or at the beginning of nesting season, and we decided to make some dating profiles for our single condors out there. And here you have Puff Daddy's dating profile, and all of their bios are based in reality, but we're still having fun with it. So just, yeah, it's funny, but it is
Yeah,
based
maybe
in
read,
reality.
this is a good one. You got to read this one. This one's pretty good.
Read the whole thing.
Yeah. Just to
Okay,
give people,
so
just to give listeners out there a taste of what we're talking about.
all right, so Puff Daddy's 22 years old, and his distance is less than a mile away, and he's active now because Puff Daddy's always ready. He displays even when it's not nesting season. He's displaying to whatever. So his bio says, San Diego to Big Sur. I'm open to love of any shape or form, ready to settle down and start a family again because I make a great dad. They don't call me Puff Daddy for nothing. I may look tough on the outside, but I'm really just a sweetheart. Semi-retired bad boy, just looking for someone to shower with affection. But for real though, I will fight someone if you need me to.
Oh, he will.
So yeah, our semi-retired bad boy just wants love.
Oh,
So
yeah, that's too awesome. Yeah, that hits it on the head.
yeah, so just, I know all these profiles will be posted in the coming weeks. So just give them a look and see maybe you think there's some condors that should be together based on their profiles, but again, we're just having fun with it. But
Yeah, we're having fun and projecting.
and
We
then
also have
another
a,
thing,
oh yeah,
oh sorry, go ahead.
no, you were about to hit on it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say another thing that we've been working on is kind of making videos of our already established pairs. So we went through and kind of just explained their past and their relationship with some videos of them and just some awesome content. So I think we're going to show. this
Yeah, I'm
video
gonna
with
I'm
Shadow
gonna
Traveler.
play it right now. So bear with me here.
Yeah, and there's
already
a
got
couple
the-
of these videos coming too, so look out for them.
Yeah, this is the first one featuring Evan. So everyone enjoy here. I'm gonna share the video.
While you're queuing that up, I just want to mention that these birds can be symbolically adopted also, and we have Valentine's Day coming up.
Yeah, that's right. Can everyone see the video? Here we go.
I'm Evan McReith, and I'm a wildlife biologist with Ventana Wildlife Society. Another pair to keep an eye on this year is 209 and 171. You might be familiar with the story of 171. She recently recovered from lead poisoning, and that story is just really iconic because it features how many different components of that process took place. You know, we have to give a huge shout out to Pinnacles for noticing she was sick and trapping the bird. 171 then went to Oakland Zoo, from Oakland Zoo down to LA Zoo, and then they were able to make a full recovery of 171 and released her back into the wild, which was just an incredible effort by all, but highlights what it takes to recover these birds from lead poisoning. 209 is also just a really interesting bird in that he is a very dominant condor, probably our most dominant and the highest on our social hierarchy here in Central California, or at least on the coastal side of that. You could see him on the Big Sur cam chasing around younger birds and fighting off, you know, any bird that is on the carcass when he wants to be there. So 209 and 171, very historical here on the coastal range. But this year we have a lot to look forward to, and we're excited to see, you know, what comes of their nesting season.
Welcome back. That was good. Did it play okay?
Yeah, looks good, yeah.
Yeah, big shout out to Evan and Meredith for putting that all together. Really awesome. Yeah, and there's more to come. So we have Kara featured on one. Kara, you're talking about Big Boy and 208
and 168.
and 168, yeah. And then Danae is going to be featured. You're going to be talking about.
I talk about 204 Iniko and 646 Kodama.
And then Darren is covering.
Darren's talking about 566 and 711, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think there's some more coming as well, but
Yeah, I think
we
there'll be
didn't
6
finish those
as
yet.
well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, great job on those. That was really cool. So yeah, everyone keep an eye out for that. And yeah, we're really looking forward to hearing more about giving you more great updates on nesting. We're hoping for a big year. Last year was we think a little bit of a ripple effect from the fire. As you know, in the 2020 Dolan fire, we lost a lot of active breeding birds in that fire, unfortunately. And I think we felt the impacts from that last year. But again, condors being as they are, they're bouncing back, and we have a lot more condors coming online, hitting breeding age. So we're excited to see not only the regular pairs come back, but also these new pairings that look really, really promising. So we could have a big year, and you know, hope all goes well there. So that brings us to the Q&A. Mike, it looks like you've been busy on that Q&A thread there.
It's been great. A lot of participants today. Thanks everyone for attending, up to 195 folks joining us. And
Awesome.
we couldn't be more pleased. Great to have all of you. A lot of questions and hard to know where to start, but I'll start right at the beginning with Sonia's question. she asks, is it okay to approach a condor? That's an interesting question. And what do you do if you see someone else approaching a condor? And so I'll leave this to the experts. And Danae, in particular, you head our volunteer crew, and maybe you can let us know, what would you tell your volunteers in terms of how to regard condors that they encounter?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So condors are a wild animal, and just like with all wild animals, we want them to stay wild. And so the biggest way you can do that is to not approach them. If they're hanging out, somewhere that you could potentially walk up to them, if they land on the edge of a pullout off of Highway 1, or you're hiking in the high peaks at pinnacles and one comes in and lands next to you, you want to actually just walk away, just back away, give that bird some space. These are areas that are part of their natural habitat. And so they're curious birds, and they might come close and land close to you. And that's really cool, but we don't want to encourage that. We don't want to give them any reason to continue to come close to people. And just like with all other wildlife, you never want to feed them or anything like that. You don't want to positively reinforce that behavior of them coming close to people. And really that's to keep them safe. So condors that are, or any animal that's unafraid of people is more likely to, come close to roads and other hazardous human dominated areas and just get into trouble getting close to people. So we want them to maintain that healthy fear of people. And that's what I tell my volunteers as well. Our volunteers go through a pretty intensive training process, and part of that is teaching them how to safely and effectively haze birds if necessary. And so hazing just means typically with condors, making a lot of noise, clapping and flushing them, causing them to fly away from a place that's really dominated by humans. And again, we don't see this happen too often. Condors are pretty good. They know to stay away from people for the most part. But they are curious birds. They're really intelligent animals. And so they do get curious, and every once in a while, especially we see it with typically younger birds, they will approach a little too closely to check out people. So again, if you're someone who's just recreating and you happen to be in condor habitat and a condor approaches you, give it some space, back away, take your photos from a good distance away, about 100 feet or so is a good distance, and just let the bird hang out, let it chill where it wants to chill. That's part of its habitat, and so it's gonna hang out there. If it does, start to approach you, just continue to back away, give it space. Again, this is really not something that we really see very often at all with condors, that they are actively approaching people. That's super rare. If you do ever have an encounter like that too, that's, seems kind of weird, and the condor is approaching people and you're concerned about it, definitely shoot us an email, let us know, because that is definitely a behavior we want to curb as soon as possible. But it's really not something that we see with any regularity with condors.
So you can see our volunteers are in good hands. And thank you, Sonia, for the question. Hope you're well there in Paradise, California. Glad to hear your headache is subsiding a little bit. Next question from Katie and Kathleen in Tallahassee, Florida. Let's get to yours. She says, I was very sad to hear that another condor has died from lead poisoning. Can analysis of the GIS, the radio tracking for Wasatch and other condors that have been poisoned, help identify areas or sources of the lead poisoning? And we have Kara and Danae week after next attending a scientific conference with the Western section of the Wildlife Society. And I believe this is a topic that Kara is going to be addressing in a presentation. And so I'd like to get her comments on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that is exactly what my presentation is going to be about. So yeah, if we have a bird with GPS that either tests high, like has a high lead level in their blood test, or dies from lead, we kind of go back and retrace that bird's steps and see where they're feeding and who else they're feeding with. And through doing that, we can kind of pinpoint where potentially they got the lead, and also what other birds may have also consumed some lead, so that we can kind of keep a closer eye on them, and just make sure that they're not showing any signs of lead poisoning. And if they are, we can do what we need to try to get them help. From there, we can kind of go to Mike. He's our non-lead outreach coordinator and does all of the non-lead outreach, and hopefully get that property owner with some non-lead ammunition if that does come to that case, just so then we know that they're using non-lead and that won't be a kind of a situation in the future, hopefully, so that no other birds will get lead poisoning from
Yeah,
that.
very good. Lucas and Gorda, based on your location, I think you've experienced some rain, and so your question is very appropriate here. Where do condors sleep in the rain to stay dry? How do they look for food in such wet weather? And in general, how do they stay warm? And Katie and Camden are kind of not far from that area, and I imagine you've experienced a lot of rain here in the last few weeks. And I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the condors a lot during the rain, but I think you've probably observed some habits. So maybe you could share with us, one or both of you, what you're seeing from the condors during some of the wet weather, and what are some ways that they kind of cope, maybe the rookies in particular.
Yeah, they definitely hunker down. Sometimes on the camera, you can see little silhouettes sitting in the trees. They definitely hunker down, find a good perch, probably a little covered under some pines or leaves, but that's not always going to keep the weather away. So as Joe touched on before, they are really designed to weather the storms. They have thick insulation, downy feathers, and streamlined feathers that the droplets will just like slide right off. So they are designed to live in this sort of weather, even though they may look like sad and uncomfortable. I'm sure they are, but they can do it.
Mm-hmm. And I believe one of the other questions was how they found food. A lot of times when it's raining really hard, they won't. They actually are really good at kind of maintaining that heat and such inside of, or maintaining their bodies pretty well, where if it's raining really hard for a week or so, they will just hunker down and make sure that they're not being blown away, and they'll do fine. I'm sure they're a little hungry at the end, but it's not like us where we need to eat every day or we start getting pretty grumpy. They have a lot more time than we do in between when they need to eat.
Yeah, I guess they can kind of slow down their lives a little bit and weather these storms. I've got a question that all of you could consider. Katie in California is writing a third grade research paper on condors and hoping to learn some more fascinating facts to share with the class. And I sort of think that Katie is probably getting fairly advanced. And so I think we need to come with some really good stuff. I think some of the old, condor tidbits, maybe she might already know. Think of some things that maybe we can share with Katie that's really cool condor wise. And I'll let any of you jump in with maybe your favorite. Go.
I'm going to start with my favorite. And I don't know if she'll know about this one, but we're talking about thermoregulating and maintaining body temperature in wet weather. Something they do in hot weather is a process called urohydrosis. And they excrete urates onto their feet, which is why they appear, basically it's the equivalent of, basically pooping on your legs to cool off. And it creates a cooling effect. And then also we think it's a kind of a disinfectant, because condors are obviously walking around and dirty stuff on carcasses and everything, and it kind of disinfects their feet as well. But yeah, their feet actually aren't white. They're kind of a pinkish color, but they appear white, especially in the summer, because they're expelling urates on their legs to cool off and to mitigate any potential parasites or bacteria on their feet. So that's one of the more popular ones I've told kids that they get a kick out of. Anyone else?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think one of the things that fascinates me the most about condors is just the complex social hierarchy that they have. So I think they're really similar to some mammals like wolves or hyenas that have these social hierarchies, and it's really not very common with birds. So I think that's something that stands out to me with condors in particular, and just getting to see a lot of those interactions like we talked about earlier in the Zoom with some of these trios that form in the breeding season and things like that, where condors, two male condors and a female condor, or two females and a male might team up and all nest together. And they all just kind of maintain the social interactions with each other. And that's really, to help them as well when they're feeding and things like that. They relay information to each other on where a carcass might be. And so some condors are, finding food by being social, and by having those relationships with other condors, they learn where food might be on the landscape and things like that. So I think that's probably my favorite fun fact. It's just they're really interesting and complex social behaviors.
Any others?
I don't know. I'm like
Also-
trying to think. Yeah, you guys go first, because I
I
feel like
have
there's so many cool ones, but of course I can't think of them now.
Yeah.
I have
it's
a
one-
quick one that kind of goes off of Danae's, which is one of my favorite facts, is that condors will sometimes follow turkey vultures to their food. So not only are they interacting between themselves or their own species, but they'll also interact a lot with other species, which is also really cool to watch.
I think it's a case where all of you have watched condors so much, but yet I bet that you would each say that you're still learning things all the time about condors just by watching them. And I know the chances I get to see condors, I'm seeing things maybe that I haven't seen before, or think of something that I haven't seen before. And so there's always a chance to learn, even for you experts. And so Katie, you have a lot of opportunities ahead. I hope you're in California, someplace where you have an opportunity to get out and see these incredible birds, and see for yourself and learn from direct observations. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We're about out of time. Joe is putting up the graphic for our next Zoom chat. Put that on your calendars, if you will. Look out for more videos that preview the nesting season. And I will throw it to Joe for any last words.
No, thank you, Mike. Thank you for fielding the questions as usual. Great questions all around. We love it. We love all the questions. And like you said, we're learning something new about these birds every day. And it's probably one of the funnest parts about working with them. It's definitely a privilege. And again, thank you everyone for your support. And yeah, I'll hand it off to Kelly. Kelly, you got any final words?
I think you said it all, but yeah, another great chat today. I really appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, big shout out to the crew and all of our partners. Thanks, everyone.